Hey, what's up? My name is Willy Chin. Welcome to the Ableton Live 12 course for beginners. I'm not gonna waste your time or my time. By the end of this video, you should be able to navigate swiftly through Ableton Live as well as make some music. So this video has two parts. For the first half of the video, I am gonna walk you through the software, show you how to navigate through the software, and show you the functions of the software. So that will be the overview of the software, and I broke it up into 4 separate categories. That way it's easier to digest. The second half of this video, I am gonna show you the practical use of Ableton Live, share with you my workflow, as well as a lot of shortcuts that I use. Before we start, if you wanna learn beyond the basics of Ableton Live, check out my online course at soundboypro.com. Everybody that joins my course, they get a discount on Ableton Live. At the time of shooting this video, it's currently at 60% off. And you get a free upgrade to Live 12. All right, let's get into Ableton Live 12 basics. Let's begin. If you're opening Ableton Live for the first time, this is how it's gonna look. I'm gonna try to make this as easy as possible. Before we get started in Ableton Live, the first thing that I do is go into my settings and add my audio card. Live, settings. All right, now that we're in here, you can pretty much leave a lot of this at default. Let's go straight to the audio tab. And I am going to select my Apollo Twin for my sound card, my input and output. Leave my sample rate at 48. The rule of thumb with the buffer size, you want a lower buffer size when you're recording and a higher buffer size for playback. A lower buffer size will give you less latency, great for recording, and a higher buffer size, it will allow your system to use more plugins without hanging up. Next, plugins. If you're using third-party plugins, make sure all of these are on. And next, these are my record settings. I record in wave. My bit depth is 24. And my warp mode is complex. Everything else, I leave as is. And that's it for my settings. All right, let's jump into it. Right now, we're looking at Ableton. This is the arrangement view. If you press tab, this is the session view. To toggle between them, you can press tab, or you can use these icons right here. For my workflow, I only use the session view. All right, so getting into this, it's a lot to cover. So I'm gonna break this section up into 4 parts. I'm gonna look at the top section as the transport. The section to the left, I'm gonna call that the browser. The big section in the middle, I'm gonna call that the tracks. And the section at the bottom, I'm gonna call that edit and effects. Before I go into these 4 sections, Ableton has its own little help window that tells you what the buttons are and the functions of them. It's located right here in the left corner. It's called the info view. You can toggle it on by clicking this little eye. And all you have to do is hover your clicker over anywhere in Ableton and it will tell you what it is. So it's a good tool to learn what everything does in Ableton. All right, so let's start at the top section, the transport. So my main focus at the transport is your tempo. This box right here is your tempo. You input whatever BPM, beats per minute, you want your session to be. You can type it in, or you could actually tap it in by clicking your mouse. Next is the metronome or the click track. To enable it, you click it. Next, these buttons are play, stop, and record. And last, this little piano icon. When this is on, it allows your regular keyboard to work as a MIDI keyboard. So that's it for the transport. Next section is the browser. I call this the command center. This is where almost everything is. So you have your sounds, you have your drums, audio effects. These are the built-in plugins that come with Ableton Live, like your EQs, compressors, filters. The plugins tab, this is where you're gonna find your third-party plugins, like your auto tune, your waves. Whatever third-party plugins you purchased or downloaded for free, this is where you find them. Next section you pay attention to is your user library. You could actually create templates to make your life easier when you work. Also, if you have any vocal presets, this is where you find them. Add folder, this is useful if you have your folder with your drum kits or your session folder, easy to access it. You can have it right there and it'll save you a lot of time. Ableton 12 is cool. It also has this filters feature. They just added this in Ableton 12. Say you want a sound, say you want a pad, all the pads will come up. Say I want an EQ, I'm in audio effects, I want an EQ, boom. All right, take off my EQ, say I want a compressor, all my compressors pop up. So this is gonna save time in your workflow. This is cool. I'll go more in depth with this later. Let's move on. All right, so this big section in the middle, I call this the tracks, because this is where all your tracks are gonna be. We have MIDI tracks and we have audio tracks. So MIDI tracks, that's for your virtual instruments. And your audio tracks, that's for your recorded audio or your samples. All right, first off, you're gonna see these gridded lines. This is your time signature. This is your beats and bars. Later on in the video, I'm gonna be building a beat and you can see how I utilize the grid. Let's go to the I/O section, the input-output section. So these are your ins and outs. They function the same on MIDI and audio. If you have a certain MIDI instrument or MIDI device you wanna put on one track and not the other, you can select it here, your input. If you have input on your audio device, on your sound card that we added earlier, this is where you would select the input. I have my microphone plugged into input 2, so I'm gonna select input 2 for this. All right, next, the track enable buttons. This is basically your mute button, these yellow buttons right here, to turn on and off your track. S is for solo. You can solo a track and listen to it by itself. The last button is your record arm. So basically for MIDI, if you want to play in your instruments live, you click record. Definitely would do it to a click track or a drum loop. But there we go, you record. Same thing for audio, record arm your track, click record. Grab my mic. Check, 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 1, 2, yo, on Massive R crew. Pull up that, pull up that, pull up that. So that's your record arm. You have to arm it and then click record on your main transport for it to work. This is your track volume. This is your pan. C is for center. You go left and right, pan left, pan right. These are your sends. It's defaulted to a reverb and a delay. Listening. Check, 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 1, 2, yo, on Massive R crew. Pull up that, pull up that, pull up that, pull up that. You can do a combination of both if you want. Check, 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 1, 2, yo, on Massive R crew. Pull up that, pull up that, pull up that. And down here are your return sends for your reverb and delay. And you can change these plugins at any time. And this is your main bus. This, if you have a master bus plugin, this is where you'd add it. That's it for the track section. All right, moving on to my last section. This is my edit and effects section. All right, so they have clip view and device view. Clip view is the view where you're gonna further edit your clip without messing with the rest of the session. Device view is where you're gonna view all your plugins and you can manipulate your plugins in there. All right, so down here to the right is where you'd find clip view selector. And right beside it is the device view selector. A cool thing with Ableton 12, you can actually view both of them at the same time now. Hold Option Command 3 for the clip view and Option Command 4 for device view. So now I have both of them up at the same time so you can see what's going on. So first, we're gonna do clip view. Click your clip that you wanna edit. So if we had MIDI, I could come in here and edit my MIDI notes, fix them, quantize them. You know, delete them, draw them in if I need to, move them, shift them. So basically that is what this is for. You could do fine-tune editing to your clips. Let's go to the audio track. And it's the same thing. You could do fine-tune editing to your clips. If you're out of timing or you want to do something crazy with the vocals. Check, check, check. You could do change the pitch. You could give it additional gain or take out gain. You could warp your tracks. Change the time signature of your tracks. Let's go. Check, 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 1, 2, yo, Massive R crew. You know what I'm saying? You can do some crazy things with this. All right, now let's test out the device view selector. Let me just put an EQ on it since it's already here. Once your clip is selected, you could drag and drop the EQ to your clip, or you could drag and drop it straight onto the device view. Apple Z, let me undo this. And let me just do something simple. Let's add an extreme EQ. Check, 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 1, 2, yo, on Massive R crew. Pull up that, pull up that, pull up. Check, 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 1, 2, yo, on Massive R crew. Pull up that, pull up that. Here's where you could manipulate all your plugins. This is where you'd have it. You can have it on every single track if you want. This is on a MIDI track. There's no audio coming through to the MIDI because there's no instruments on there. As you can see right here, it says drag and drop an instrument. Let's go drag and drop an instrument on there. Let's do a synthesizer. Check, check, check. 1, 2, yo, all massive, all cool. So if I played something better, it would have played better. Check, check, check. 1, 2, yo. But we can also EQ it, do whatever effects you want to do. Check, check, check. 1, 2, yo, all massive, all cool. So basically, the sky is the limit. So that's it for the fourth section, edit and effects. All right, now that we've gone through the overview, it's time to show you the practical uses of Ableton Live 12. Let me walk you through my workflow. Watching this for the first time may seem like I'm going pretty fast. Don't be afraid to pause it, rewind it, or even slow down the playback to receive all the information. All right, let's get right into it. All right, now we're in session view and we are ready to start. Today, I'm gonna start with a drum, so let's go straight to the drums. So maybe I want to make a beat around 100 BPMs. You could always change this later. I personally like to draw in all of my drums, but let me show you the drum rack for an example. Just drag and drop it. This is a MIDI instrument, so it has to go on a MIDI channel. If you try to drop it on your audio channel, it will not work. Check out the difference in these icons. This icon would identify this as an instrument for MIDI. And this icon would identify this as an audio sample. With the drum rack, you can build your own kits by dragging and dropping samples in it, but I'm gonna use one of Ableton's pre-made kits. You can click on these kits to preview them and just use your up and down arrow to scroll through. Now just drag and drop it into your drum rack. Now you have access to all these sounds like you're using a drum machine. Especially if you have it hooked to your MIDI keyboard, you can use this to trigger them. Let's start. Let's record something. I'm going to use a click track so I can keep timing. Record arm. And let's push record and let's try something. I'm going to click my track and go into my clip view selector. Right here at the bottom right. I would do Command A to select all. Command U to quantize. Now that is going to get everything onto your grid. I'm just going to highlight and delete what I don't want. To zoom in and out, you're going to use plus or minus on your keyboard. Now I'm going to do loop playback, Command L, and let's turn off the metronome. The next way you could do this, if you're not using your MIDI drum rack, you could actually bring sounds in and place them where you want them to be. Let me show you an example. Let's get a hi-hat. Now all you have to do, once you find your hi-hat that you like, click and drag it in to an audio channel. As I said before, to zoom in and out, plus and minus. This next shortcut, remember this one. This is Command D, which is duplicate. You highlight the area you want and you click Command D. The hi-hat sounds a little loud. Let me turn it down. You can also do some accents with your hi-hats. Right now, I'm just going to speed through this. I'm going to do the same thing, drag in a few more sounds, get a groove. Then we're going to go on to add in a MIDI instrument. This is my drum track. Let's listen to it. I have a nice little groove going now. I'm just going to consolidate these tracks so they're easier to sequence out when I'm ready. So just highlight everything and use Command J. If you want to do everything all at once, you can highlight all of the tracks and use the same Command J. Now I'm ready to add some MIDI instruments. All right, select the sound you want. Do the same thing, drag and drop it in. Let's test it out. Let's go into our clip view. Let's quantize. Clean up your tracks. The cool thing with MIDI, once you have your MIDI notes, you can preview any instrument or add any instrument playing the same thing. So right now, I'm gonna click your track, hold on Option, and let's duplicate this. And now I could try different sounds or different instruments playing the same thing. Look at this. Just drag and drop it on, and let's listen to it. Now that you have your little groove going, we can start sequencing this out so an artist could go on it. So easiest way, same thing, highlight everything, and let's duplicate. We're gonna create a structure like an intro, chorus, verse, chorus. Now, you're gonna press 0 to mute. So I'm just gonna mute certain things just to create a vibe, see how it goes. Let me take out all this. Oh, remember to turn off your loop. Command L or come up here, right click, and take off your loop. All right, intro, verse, chorus. Now that I got the grooves that I want, I'll just highlight and duplicate. And now this is my beat. I'm ready to add some plugins, some EQ to this. You could actually do this while you're making a beat. For educational purposes, I just did it separate, but there's no rules to this. You could add in your plugins when you're working on your production, however you see fit. Now let me add in some EQ and compression onto this. Maybe some reverb, audio effects, EQ. Drag and drop it onto the channel. Let's solo it. I'm just gonna put a low cut filter. Maybe a compressor. To alter more than one thing at a time, click it, hold shift, and click the other one. Now I'm gonna toggle the plugins on and off so you could hear the difference. Maybe I wanna pan my shaker and my clav. I'm gonna go extreme. We're just putting these things to use, right? Let's see what effects we could add to our synth or keys. Let me see, let's say modulation. Let's try something. Phaser. Deleting that sound. I don't need it. Maybe add a filter to it. Let's. I'm kind of happy with this beat right now. So I'm just going to delete all the things that I'm not using. And now I just want to stay organized, so I'm going to make a group for my beat. So just click the first track, hold down shift, and highlight all the tracks you want to put in a group, and use Command G. That'll create a group for you. I like to name my groups. So Command R, rename your group. Full beat full. And now you can minimize this. That way your session doesn't get crazy. Command T, add a new track. And now I'm gonna add my vocals on here. Let me select my input where I have my microphone coming in. On my setup, I'm using input 2. You can see the levels here on input 2. All right, let's test this out. Arm your track, check, check, check. Audio check, 1, 2. If I wanna monitor myself in the headphones, check, check, check. Audio check. Now I'm getting latency. So let's reduce our buffer size. Settings. Audio. I'm gonna try this, see if my system could handle it. Yeah. Check, check, check. Oh, not bad. Next thing you could do as well, put it on low latency monitoring up in their options. Reduce latency when monitoring. Check, check, check. Let's try recording. Yo, brand new, Willy Chin. If you like my content, like, follow, subscribe. If you like my content, like, follow, subscribe. I make content every day. All right, after you have your vocals in your session, you can start processing them. I'm gonna add an EQ, compression, maybe some effects on there. It's the same process as before. Drag and drop your processors onto your channel and edit. Now let's take a listen. Yo, brand new, Willy Chin. If you like my content, like, follow, subscribe. If you like my content, like, follow, subscribe. All right, once you're done with your production, your demo, your song, it's time to export. What I do, I highlight everything. I'm gonna go to File, Export Audio. Now you just have to decide how you want to export your song. You have a few options. You can export as a WAV, AIFF, FLAC. I'm choosing WAV, 24-bit depth, triangular dither. If I wanted to export as an MP3, I could turn off WAV and turn on MP3, or I could check both and export both files. Click Export, then choose the folder where you want to export your song to, then click Save. It'll render out, and that's that. Well, that's it. My name is Willy Chin. This was your Ableton Live 12 tutorial for beginners. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Mod.